Let's get this next individual up here. Only sending guest requests if you did
Oh
vote
my
Trump.
God,
We are
this
just looking
dude!
for some debates. Get many debates up here. I'll probably just yo, what's up? How old are you?
Hey, I'm 30. I'm gonna be 31. How are you today?
Did you vote Trump?
Yeah, 100%. I voted Trump. 100%.
Why?
Because under the Biden administration, my life exasperated into difficulty. Under Trump, I was able to have opportunities of buying a house. Under Biden, those opportunities completely disappeared. And I just heard you speaking to the guy before. You said inflation cannot be linked to Biden. That's actual misinformation right there. Do you believe sanctions can lead to inflation? Yes or no?
I do believe that sanctions specifically can lead to levels of price
And do you
increases. I
believe that
wouldn't
Biden was
dispute
the one
that. But
that
hold up,
Biden
can I
policies
respond?
created sanctions upon Russia? Do you agree or no?
I do agree that Biden policies specifically led to sanctions that exist, right? But I would
So
say
how
that
can
the
you
Trump administration
just give me?
policies.
Let me just
Hey,
give you the question.
eh, eh, no, I would just like for you to like let me respond,
Okay, go ahead.
right? And then you can respond to what I'm saying. Okay, is that fair? Yeah.
Absolutely, go
So
ahead.
I think that the sanctions would have existed either way with the Trump administration and the Biden-Harris administration. Would you have said that the Trump administration would have put no pressure on Putin invading, right, sovereign territory?
Okay, the evidence is not there. Show me the evidence. The evidence does not show that the Trump administration at all was going to push any sanctions. Actually, the evidence shows that the Trump administration didn't have any similar trend of inflation as the Biden administration at all. You want to try to
Wait,
link.
no. Sanctions. Wait. The sanctions are going to be in response to the invasion of Ukraine. So, what would Trump have done in response to the invasion of Ukraine? Would
So
he
now
have not
you
done
want me to
sanctions?
speculate, and the problem is I cannot speculate because this never happened underneath the Trump administration. Instead, what happened was Biden created a policy of sanctioning, knowing it's going to hurt the American economy and the Western economy, forced that upon the American people, told us to take it in the chin, and exasperated the inflation issue. And basically, you can link all of that to
I'm pretty
Biden. That's
sure.
the whole argument here, and you actually
Wait,
misinformed the people earlier.
hold up.
The argument
Yeah.
is you
So,
can link that
did you
directly
know
to
that
Biden
legislation that
inflation.
relates to Congress? Wait, hold up. So again,
Holy shit, 157 likes.
we can reference sanctions, right? You're saying that like Trump wouldn't have engaged in sanctions. If Trump wouldn't have engaged in sanctions, well, then what you're saying is that there would have been no response to Russia, which essentially would have meant that Russia would have been able to take Ukraine.
This is insane. What are you arguing right now? The argument is that you cannot be linked to the 9.1% inflation. You cannot put COVID, and you cannot blame that on COVID because the trend underneath by the Trump administration did not show the same trend flow underneath the Biden administration. Instead, what's happened?
So
the
what you're
only
doing is a
difference was
correlation
the
causation
sanctions.
fallacy.
You're trying to speculate that Trump is going to commit the same sanctions. You have no proof of that. That's complete speculation. You're misinforming your people.
Actually, you're speculating that it is the case that he would have engaged otherwise from that. We can reference the fact that sanctions
Because he never did.
are
I can do
legitimate.
that
Can I
because
please
there was
respond,
no
or am I
show.
able to finish? Do I need to mute you when you speak, or like are you like
Go
okay
ahead.
right
Sorry,
now?
go ahead. I was just showing you. I'm speculating about that because he never sanctioned Russia underneath his
Speculating.
administration.
There you go. Wait. So you said that my speculation was unjustified, but your speculation was justified when it is the case that typically foreign policy decisions happen in a particular way, and it's not dependent specifically on just what one person in the government thinks.
Okay, let me prove it to you. Can I ask you a question?
Justin, thank you for $3. Thank you so much.
Could Biden have done anything else except sanctioning Russia to try to deal with the Ukrainian situation? Yes or no?
Well, obviously, they could have done
That's
they
it.
could have done
That's
other
it.
things.
That's
But I'm
the
saying this
proof.
was the most reasonable. Listen. Can you like listen? Are you actually like? It's actually like frustrating talking to you because you're not trying to listen to what I'm saying. You're like literally not even engaging with what I'm saying. You're like actually screaming at me.
Because all I have to do is create
No,
doubt
can I
in your theory.
respond?
I
Can
don't
I
have
like
to provide
respond?
proof.
You have to create doubt in the theory. No,
Yeah,
just acknowledging that there would be doubt in a particular hypothesis doesn't mean that that hypothesis isn't true. It also
all I
doesn't mean
have
that
to
that isn't a
show is
hypothesis.
Trump. All I have to show is
Can you
Trump
shut the fuck up? Can you shut the fuck up? Be quiet. I will literally kick you from my live if you keep doing this. Please be quiet. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay, so again, you said you don't have to provide proof, you don't have to provide evidence. You put casting doubt doesn't actually reduce, right, the likelihood of me accepting a particular position because obviously I'm not saying that we have 100% certainty with every position. I'm justifying my position based on what's most likely to be the case or what most evidence indicates. And typically speaking, it's going to operate within the same way, which indicates that the evidence is pointing towards it's likely to occur this way, most likely to occur this way because it typically occurs that way. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, but it didn't occur that way. Everybody can link that the sanction policies were under only Biden. Trump never committed them. You're trying to tell your people that Trump would have also committed those sanctions.
Then why didn't he? Why didn't Trump? Then why didn't Trump remove the sanctions that Obama put in place specifically on the Russian economy?
I don't know, but that doesn't prove that Trump was going to sanction Russia, because you have to show that Trump had kind of a policy underneath of.
Can you just tell me? Can you tell me why?
No,
wait, hold up.
You can't prove that.
Can you tell me why he didn't do that specifically?
Doesn't matter.
And if he was going to make conditions better, and if he was going to make conditions better within Ukraine, why didn't he do so under his administration?
So your argument, your literal argument is you believe Trump would have done the exact same sanctions that the Biden administration committed underneath Ukraine, knowing that it could actually decimate the American economy and the Western economies and create an exasperated inflation issue right after an emergency situation with COVID. You're saying that you believe Trump would have done the exact same thing. That's what your argument is right now.
No, my argument is that it is the case that this would have likely happened either way because it's not dependent specifically on one person in the federal government, like a particular president, or whether or not we engage in this particular type of foreign policy, right? When you specifically try to condense these types of foreign policy decisions into one person in the federal government, I think that removes your critical analysis of the matter that acknowledges that we have a government full of different individuals that specifically require things in order for things to be passed. We have people in the executive branch that specifically are tasked with doing this. We have advisors. We have people that have been working in military and politics and related to that who are nonpartisan individuals for decades that have been engaging in particular types of mechanisms.
Parker,
or particular types of action, sorry.
Parker, I have to do that because I'm not going to sit here and speculate like you on what the hell Trump administration would have done. They didn't do it. They didn't do the sanctions. They could have done them. You could show right now, you could defeat me right now and show me proof that there was a policy of sanctioning Russia underneath the Trump administration. There isn't. And even if it was nothing comparable to the Biden administration. You can link directly.
Wait,
this
so
is the argument here, and please directly deal with this argument and deal with it directly right now.
Right, you
can link the
you
inflation of 9.1%. Let me please give you the argument, Parker. The 9.1% inflation is linked directly to.
No, the issue is I already gave you the distinction. I gave you the distinction earlier and you didn't listen. Right? I specifically acknowledged the fact that the difference is that they were going to invade Ukraine. That is a huge fucking difference. Obviously, if the invasion of Ukraine happened under the Trump administration, there would have been a similar proportionate response.
My understanding underneath the Trump administration, there was some level of heightened security risk, but Putin never committed to anything. It was underneath the Biden administration where all of the talks completely faltered, and that's when Putin was forced, because the Biden administration did not allow any more diplomatic talks to have any final reaching. You cannot sit here and put this and act like the Trump administration.
Here, by the way, I have from Brookings right here, 2019 sanctions.
Let me finish, please. The Trump administration, you're
2019
basically arguing right
from
now
Brookings.
is that the Trump administration would have committed the exact same foreign affairs policy-wise with Russia as the Biden administration, and that's a complete lie. That's not true. You're acting like they would have been exactly alike with Russia.
So December 5th, you actually muted yourself. December 5th, sanctions. September 30th, 2019, sanctions. September 26th. 2019 sanctions, August 2nd.
Yeah, but
sanctions,
he never sanctioned their
right,
energy.
May 16th,
sanctions
right, May 14th,
Biden
sanctions. Leah, thank you so much for the $10. Thank you so much.
Okay, then tell me
May
why didn't
1st,
the inflation
sanction.
go up to 9% underneath Trump if he sanctions so much?
You're covering your mic. I can't even hear you.
Okay, if sanctions are so, Trump sanctions were so detrimental to the economy, why didn't the trend of inflation go up to 9%?
Wait. You were arguing
because
that they
my
didn't
argument
put
was
in
that
place
the
sanctions,
Biden
and I could show
administration
you.
sanctions are different.
You were arguing
The
that like I
administration of
couldn't show
Biden's sanctions are different.
You were arguing that I couldn't specifically show you sanctions that he did under his administration. I showed you sanctions that he did under his administration, and now you can't accept
Yeah,
it.
but you can't link them to the 9% inflation. I can link the Biden administration sanctions to the
Wait, you
9%
can't link into
inflation.
the no, no, because what you're doing is a correlation causation fallacy. You're saying
I
just
have
because two
to.
things are associated doesn't mean one caused the other. Because if the same thing was true specifically under the Trump administration, you would say it's also caused under the Trump administration, yet you didn't see the inflation that you're referencing. You could also reference the idea that it takes years for these things to compound in terms of inflationary pressure. Push the hand out. So obviously it's not just like one
No,
thing.
you can't
And
make the
people are
argument.
spamming the
You
chat.
can't make the
Are you
argument.
driving?
No, you can't. No, I'm not. You can't make the argument because you can't make the argument that it takes years because you would see the same trend underneath Trump, or you would see at least the start of that trend. You didn't see that. The argument is
No,
COVID
no,
19
no,
had
no, 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 no,
almost 0%
no.
inflation. Let me finish the argument.
No. We know that it was that way because it happened globally. It's not related to the administration, right? Specifically here in the United States, push the hand or Trump or right Biden. Neither of them caused it. It was COVID. Okay, the same way
You're
the
misinforming your
14.8%
people.
unemployment that happened under Trump's administration wasn't caused specifically by Trump.
Parker, the inflation, the 9% inflation cannot be attributed to COVID.
The 14.8% unemployment can't keep that.
We're
That
talking
I'm going to say
about the
that's Trump's
9%
fault.
inflation
So
right
so
now.
Trump caused the highest rate of unemployment since the Great Depression.
No, the unemployment is attributable to the lockdowns, but the inflation is not attributable to the lockdown.
Oh,
I'll give
okay,
it to
but
you.
so
I'll
so
give
you
it to you.
say
Let
it's
me give it to
COVID.
you.
So it's
Let me give it to
COVID
you,
with
Parker.
unemployment, but not COVID with inflation.
Parker, let me give it to you. I'll give it to you. You can relate. You can link 3% inflation to the COVID. What happened to the 6.1%? Where did that come from? Is it possible that sanctioning Russian energy, fertilizer, natural gas on Ukraine, is that possible that it can hurt the economy here in America and
Understand
create
that.
inflation? Uh,
You cut out. Why'd you mute yourself?
Is it
I don't-
possible
what
that
you're
it can,
saying?
sorry, is it possible that the 6.1%, the difference, I'll give it to you, I'll give you up to 3%. Let's say COVID-19 will make the inflation rise all the way to 3%.
Are you talking about inflation?
Yeah, I'll let's say underneath Trump.
So listen. You're attributing inflation to the incumbent president when you have no good argument to do so. Per Standard, you said it was related to sanctions. I gave you plenty of sanctions Trump imposed specifically on Russia, indicating that there was a likely pattern that he would have sanctioned Russia, given it is the case that they invaded Ukraine.
Yeah,
The
but
idea that there wouldn't have been a sanction, I think, is misled.
Okay, well, I'll just explain my position.
Silver,
so I
thank you for the
understand why
$5. Thank
I'm
you
not
so much.
misleading. I'm not misleading because the Biden administration sanctions are unique to the Biden administration. They are not similar to the Trump administration sanctions. They are sanctions on energy exports, on fertilizer, on commodities. This was different sanctions than the Trump administration was putting on.
No, okay, so again, there's sanctions specifically in terms of human rights abuses. There's sanctions specifically in terms of a specific attack in Salisbury. There was a sanctions in response to evading schemes for Syria. There was sanctions in relation to 2018 election interference attempts. There was sanctions in relation to a bank hacking scheme.
Okay, so are you trying to say that sanctioning Russia did not affect our economy in any way? Is that your argument here?
So sanctioning does impact the economy, but to say that it's specifically caused by them would be saying that it wouldn't have happened regardless.
Okay, but I'm telling
So
you that
if
supply
both
chain
sides,
issues and COVID-19 is not sufficient. It's not
so
sufficient proof.
so
either.
then here's your issue. If you're saying that that's the cause of most inflation, which I think is ridiculous to say it's just the sanctions, by the way, then
Okay, you give me a better
because there was
example.
already a trend of
Supply chain
inflation.
bottlenecks is not the issue.
I'm about to just kick you. You're just kind of annoying to talk to because like you don't actually try to engage in a conversation.
All I want
If
is
you
for
like
you
want
to
to
give me
engage in a
sufficient
conversation
reason.
and a constructive dialogue, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna like honestly just get off and have some peach pie.
Fine, man. Go ahead. What do you want? Go ahead. Let's continue.
Okay, make your argument.
Okay, my argument is it's not sufficient to blame COVID-19 and the supply chain bottlenecks for the 9.1% unprecedented historical inflation. There has to be something else that happened. In the same period, sanctions of energy.
Yeah, COVID.
No, but okay, I'll give it to you. I'll give you 3%. I'll give you from because COVID.
You can't
during COVID,
just say 3%. You can't say that because
Yeah,
that type
I'll
of
tell you why.
look at so then why don't you look at global inflation rates? Why don't you acknowledge that the
I'm
average
looking at
inflation rate for the
America.
globe was around the same?
I'm looking at America. It went down to almost zero, then went all the way up to 2.5 underneath Trump. So I'll give it to you. From 0 to 3%, this is COVID, blame to COVID. Between 3 to 6 to 9.1%, what are you blaming? What is that? I'm blaming sanctions on Russia, energy, Russian commodities. What are you blaming?
I've already told you supply chain effects that relate to the pandemic.
Okay,
We've already
but
told you this.
I
That's
already
why it
attributed
happened.
that.
What you're not understanding, you say you're going to attribute some
There has to be
arbitrary
something
number of
else.
3%. Stop talking, dude. You're going to attribute some arbitrary number of 3%. How are you going to be the one to evaluate that? Why don't you look at economists? Do you have a degree in economics?
No,
Do you
not
even know
all,
what
but I
market
did
equilibrium
graduate.
is? What's market equilibrium?
What's what?
What's market equilibrium?
Market equilibrium is that when supply and demand is equal to one another almost?
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good. That's good. So, obviously, so if we look at inflation, well, I would just ask you this question, right? If you take into account inflationary pressure, right, you would know that just because two things are associated doesn't mean one caused the other. What you're doing is attributing just because two things are associated because it happened under the Biden-Harris administration means it's caused by them, right? I could sit there and say, oh, I only attribute a specific percent of, I only attribute the 3% unemployment under Trump's administration of the 14.8% unemployment to COVID. The rest of it, that's all Trump.
Yeah, because it's not sufficient. You're telling me it's bottlenecks of supply chain issues is not sufficient because those are the same issues that happened underneath Trump, but the inflation never exasperated to 9.1%. There's something else that's affected there, and the only thing that I can see, the only indicator, the only other thing that's showing is a sanction
Oh
war.
my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm gonna go insane. I'm gonna go insane. I'm gonna go insane.
I'm just saying
So again,
it's
as a
not sufficient. You're only giving a supply chain bottleneck, and that's not
no,
sufficient
no,
for
no.
9.1
That
historical
is
inflation.
absolutely
It's
that is
not for
absolutely sufficient to
historical.
cause most of what you're referencing. Now, obviously, it's not 100%. We can reference price gouging. We can reference other things that existed and happened, right? But in like sanctions as well,
Parker,
we can reference that. But that's not going to be a huge portion of what you're specifically
Parker,
referencing. As we've implemented sanctions in 2014. We've implemented sanctions, right? Specifically here, you're saying specifically the bottleneck in terms of gasoline is like literally the only negative impact on our economy.
no, that's what you're saying. What I'm saying is I cannot accept that.
No.
If I can only say that, if I can only agree with you that bottleneck chains can attribute to the inflation up from 3 to 9%. I can only agree with you on that. If you agree with me that sanctions do not hurt economies and sanctioning Russian oil is not going to hurt the U.S. economy. That's the only way I can agree with you on
I
that,
don't know.
and that's
I don't know
true.
how many times I can tell you this. I agree sanctions have negative impacts on economies. I'm not disputing that. That's the whole basis of what a sanction is, right? But what you're not understanding is that foreign policy would have happened regardless of Trump or Biden in office. And to attribute that as the main explanation for why there was the 9% inflation over a specific month under the Biden-Harris administration, I think is misguided because there was a global inflation rate that was high. And it wasn't just specifically because of the sanction placed on Russia, right? It was because of supply chain effects that happened globally. So you need something that is true everywhere around the world that could explain the average rate of inflation being at the rate it was globally, not just in one area, not just because of
Russian
not just
energy
ones that
sanctions.
specifically trade with Russia, not that specifically, everywhere around the world. What explains that? A global pandemic.
Just
That's what
COVID-19.
explains that. And every economist can acknowledge this, but people on the right don't want to acknowledge this because they don't trust economics
acknowledged it.
professionals. They don't trust the academics. They don't trust the studies. They don't trust the evidence because Donald Trump has deluded them.
Parker, give me 30 seconds. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you. I gave it to you. Inflation went down all the way to 0.2% underneath Trump during COVID, then shot back up to 2.5. I acknowledge you. From 0.2 to 3%, I'll attribute all of that to COVID-19. I gave it to you. I gave it to you. You're right. 3% of all inflation is attributable to COVID-19 supply chain bottleneck. You have to, but if
Why 3%?
Let me finish, please, Parker. 10 more seconds. If the only
I've
way
already
I can
asked
agree
you this
with
question and you just repeated the same thing.
No,
Why
no,
3%?
no. I'm explaining to you why. I'm finishing. Yeah, you're right. I gave you 3%. But the only way I can give you from 3 to 9% is I have to shut down my brain, say that sanctions cannot actually do any detrimental effects on world economy, especially when you sanction the biggest commodity market in the world. And and then I have to shut down my brain and remember, oh, from 0.2% to 3% was COVID-19. Now from 3% to 9% is also COVID-19. I'm going to have to not accept that sanctions actually detrimentally affect the economy. You have to agree with me, and you actually agree with me. You keep saying misguided, but then you also agree with me that sanctions affect world economies detrimentally. So how can you say I'm misguided and you give me a better solution? What happened between 3 to 9%? Who's attributable? And you cannot say supply chain. So give me anything else except COVID-19 supply bottleneck chains. Please, anything else.
Yeah, price gouging, right? But the main specific cause, right, is this
Price
bottle
gouging,
chains,
guys.
because it has to be true everywhere around the world. Okay, it has to be true everywhere, right? What you're referencing isn't true everywhere. Like I've already explained, there are places around the world that do not rely on Russia in terms of trade
guy needs his
specifically
own
that would be
life.
impacted by these sanctions, right? That still had that negative impact. So
You're right.
that's why your hypothesis doesn't explain why there was global inflation
But-
at the same levels.
But you agree with me, sanctions can detrimentally hurt world economies.
Never disputed that. What I'm saying is it's not the main explanation for the level of inflation,
Okay,
because
but
it is
that's
the
my
case
argument
that
as
we did
well.
not see that trend exist globally.
That's
So there's
my
no
argument
way
as
it would
well
have been the
against
main
you.
explanation.
That's the exact argument
Okay,
I'm giving
all
against
right.
you.
If you just make the same point over and
No,
over
no,
again,
no.
I'm just gonna go eat peach pie.
No, Parker. My argument against you as well is COVID-19 is not enough. It's not sufficient for you to explain the inflation from 3% to 9%.
So again, why can you tell me 3%? Why 3%?
I'll give it to you 3% because underneath Trump, it went all the way to 0.2, then shot back up to 2.5. So I'll give it to you. I'll give you an error, margin of error. I'll give it to you. 3% is all attributable to COVID. All of that inflation was attributable to COVID. You're right.
No, because you understand that the main brink of what happened from COVID did not impact Trump yet, right? While he was in office. If Trump stayed in
that's not
office,
what
that
the
same
data
level of
shows.
inflation, so actually right now
The data shows
inflation
that
is
the
at
economy was
so
recovering by
actually
the time.
so right now the data shows that inflation rate's 2.6%.
Yeah, you're right. But underneath, but you're trying to say that underneath Trump, the economy was horrible, and then Biden inherited that economy, and it was, and he had to keep.
So wait, so then why don't you? So then why
on
don't?
him. But I'm showing you, if you look at the data,
Are the sanctions
by
still in place?
2021, it had almost completely recovered.
Yeah, listen. Are the sanctions still in place?
The sanctions, I believe, Belarus, a couple of Eastern European nations completely forced those sanctions out.
No. So are the United States sanctions still on Russia?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So then why is inflation lower?
Let's see here. Well, you're saying inflation is lower. Is that what you see right now? You see actually inflation is lower?
2.6%.
Because okay, you're saying 2.6%, but prices have
Marcos,
been higher than
thank you so
ever
much.
before.
Appreciate the galaxy. Thank you so
Higher
much.
than ever before.
There were points under Trump's administration where it was 2.9%.
So okay. So how can you say inflation is at 2.6%? Okay, maybe it is for this year, but
The Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Sorry?
The Bureau of Labor Statistics.
That's fine. Let's say it did go down to 2.6 for this year, but still
It
everyone's
did.
feeling
It's
the
not.
pain.
Let's say it did.
Everyone's feeling the pain on the in the labor in the actual commodity market. All the prices went up, and because of the sanctions still existing, now people have obviously adapted, and but the inflation
Silver
is
thing,
going
the
to continue to
$5.
rise. You're never going to get down to lower levels than like Trump had.
Really? Because we had 2.4% last month, right? Which specifically was related to lower than Trump 2018.
This
for
is
Trump.
ridiculous.
Also, again, I just referenced 2.6 right now is lower than points under Trump, where it was 2.9.
You're literally looking at a month to month, and then you go for Biden,
Yeah.
but then you go to Trump and look at year to year. This is like not.
No, I actually I referenced both annual and I referenced month over month. 2.9 is month over month. And I like how you reference month over month with 9%, but you won't reference month over month with 2.9% under Trump, but 2.6% now.
No, I would never look at month to month in general. I would only look at year to year. And under Trump, you're right, 2.4 was the highest, but that's the highest. Underneath
Fucking
Biden, 2.4 is the lowest.
You are fucking insane. You are unbelievable. 9% was a month over month inflation rate, not an annual inflation rate. If you're looking at annual inflation rate, you didn't see 9 in the United States. 9 was
Yeah, but it
never
reached
hit
up to
in the United States.
7.4 or something like that.
So then why'd you say 9?
Because it was 9 for like
Be,
6 to 8 months or
no, it
something like that.
wasn't. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
By the way, this is actual proof that the moment we created those sanctions in Russia, it exasperated because there was such a like basically a scare in the market that shot up the inflation. And now that we're adapting a little bit, but there's still you're never going to see the inflation go down like you did under Trump. Underneath Trump, it was at 1.4. I think that was the average.
Again, 2.9% under Trump.
His last
Here's the
year
handout.
after COVID, which I
That's
attributed all of that to
no,
COVID already.
that's before COVID. That's 2018.
So that's when he took his the economy from Obama.
2018 was it was over a year into his administration. That's like when his tax policy was implemented.
But my understanding is he dropped the inflation down. He was bringing it down. It was going up, and then he started bringing it down. It went down to 1.4.
It was
Then
2
because
point
of
no,
COVID,
it went up
shot
to
up.
no, it went up to no, pre-COVID it went up to 2.9%. And then during COVID it went down because of COVID. Right, appreciate the handout. When we were inside, right, and then once supply chains negatively impacted it in the long run, it caused inflation.
Yeah, but
So
that
again, in the
inflation.
short term, it caused demand to go down, which caused prices to go down.
Okay.
Right, or price increase to go down. Right, but then when specifically we were long run, and there wasn't as many services to meet up with the increase in demand, that led to an increase in price.
Okay, so the point is that let's get to the point here, Parker. So the point is that inflation is only attributable to COVID. You cannot. The Biden administration had no fault at all in increasing inflation. They had no ability to actually lower inflation at all. They couldn't
Comparative to the
implement any
Trump.
policies.
No, that's not what I'm
What's the
saying.
argument?
So
What's
what
the
mainly
argument?
deals with inflation is what mainly deals with inflation is the Federal Reserve. Now, if you want to reference specifically, like, did they cause more inflation than Trump? No, they did not. Now, could you say some of their policies cause some level of inflation? Absolutely. That's how spending works. When you spend, right, that causes inflation. That does. I'm
That's
not
actually
disputing that. But we want
non-correlatory
it
because
within.
Trump spent more than Biden,
Trump did spend more, right? I'm just
and his
referencing that
inflation
spending
was less.
some. I'm gonna kick you if you don't shut the fuck up. It takes years for these things to compound. So it causes some level of inflation, but not necessarily a high level of inflation. It's going to be within the target rate typically.
Okay, that's great. So you agree with me that inflation, even with all these issues, Trump never hit those inflation numbers. There had to be something else, another indicator, something that happened at
So
that same time.
yeah, which was specifically COVID supply chains. Now we could reference points under Trump that are higher than now. 2.9% under Trump in 2018 during a particular month. I think it was May, right? And then specifically now it's at 2.6%.
I have to disagree with you. I don't think that's sufficient proof. I think that there was COVID-19 bottlenecks underneath Trump, and we never hit that inflation. I do want to reach one last point before we leave.
2.9% was in 2019 before inflation, well before inflation.
Yeah, but that was the average. That was pretty much average. There was a trend of exasperated inflation underneath Biden that was never seen before. There was no trend of that underneath Trump. There's
What do you
something else
mean? What
that
do you mean?
happened.
Never seen before? Never seen before?
No,
Do you
no,
know what
historically for
stagflation
40
is?
years, for 42 years actually.
So again, but that doesn't mean it was caused by the Biden-Harris administration, right? The same way that there was
But
a global pandemic under Trump, that doesn't mean Trump caused the global pandemic,
can I ask you a
right?
question?
That hasn't happened in 100 years,
Did they
right?
have
To the
any
degree
power?
that we
Did
saw
they
it, like
have
with
any
the
power to
Spanish
hold it
flu.
off? Did
Hold
they
what
have
off?
any power of influence over the pandemic of inflation?
Who?
The Biden administration. Could they have, for example,
Could the Biden
came to
administration done
concessions
like
with the Treasury or the Fed or the Fed?
no, the Federal Reserve is independent.
So you're saying the president has no power of influence. He cannot come to concessions. Is it kind of like a Congress meeting?
Essentially none other than appointing. So like Trump specifically tried to
I think that's misinformation.
get Jerome Powell to cut interest rates under his administration, but Jerome Powell essentially just said fuck off.
My understanding is the actual presidents have immense power and they have power of influence. They can even influence the Fed. They can appoint, fire, actually,
Okay.
I believe, or force resignation. Anyways, I do
I'm
want to
gonna-
reach one point. So I believe, or forced resignation. Anyway,
I'm gonna go eat peach pie. I literally just explained to him that they're separated and that Jerome Powell didn't listen to him. He doesn't respond to that. He's like, "Oh, I do believe specifically that it is the case that like they have influence over them." Like, what are you talking about, dude? By the way, I literally studied the Federal Reserve. Like, I literally have like over a fucking 12-page paper on the Federal Reserve. I literally studied it. I wrote for in college. Kayla, I appreciate the description. Thank you so much. And I promise you, right, it's independent, right? There are some regulatory aspects over the Federal Reserve that the government has, but it's not directly the president. Like, there's the appointing power, but generally when they're appointed, they try to stay nonpartisan. Right, that's the whole point of the Federal Reserve, is that they want to stay nonpartisan. That's the whole basis of why there's some private aspect of the Federal Reserve. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some peach pie. Love y'all so much. Have a fantastic night, everyone. I love y'all so much. I don't know what's going on with the TikTok algorithm. It's so fucking weird. But yeah, I love y'all so much. Have a good night, everyone.
so the only argument that I'm wrong, and that he actually got that right. Here it is, guys.
AP News is just called the election in Pennsylvania, meaning AP News is just called.
What power does the president have over the Federal Reserve? He can appoint and fire the chair. He can appoint majority of the voting officials. He's not the sole arbiter of who is going to take the seats, but he has a lot of influence. President can also voice concerns and be a participant of the conversation. Trump's not the only one who's done it. But the only thing that he has no effect over is stopping completely the Fed from increasing interest rates. But he can be in the conversation. He can hire and fire the Fed chair who doesn't listen to him. He can appoint majority of the voting officials, so he can actually have more kind of influence over the votes, get the people that he likes in. Obviously, he doesn't have complete control, but he has a lot of influence. So the idea that there's no influence, the president has no influence over freaking Fed is ridiculous. And you're taking the power away from the Biden administration. You're taking the accountability away from the Biden administration. I'm not going to be accepting of it. I'm not going to accept this. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby. Let's go.